We are live.
All right. Well, everybody, welcome to episode 7. I can't believe it's episode 7. Came pretty quick. Before I introduce my special guest, who's actually a very special guest, just a couple updates. It sounds like we're going to be doing quite a few more of these. Actually got a little bit of funding. So there'll actually be a screen behind me, some actual lighting, make my chubby white face look a little bit nicer. Maybe a mic to make me look professional. I'm still going to be a maniac, but outside of that, I'll be a more professional maniac as well too. Maybe a little bit of branding. Right now, we are the premium podcast powered by Renegade, but very shortly soon, we're hoping to be maybe just the Renegade podcast, a little bit more apropos to who we are generally. But also 3-3. Our next podcast, it's going to be same time, March the 3rd. We're actually going to celebrate International Women's Day, and more specifically, the women of Renegade. So it should be a really good podcast. I'm really excited. We've got some amazing women that we work with who kind of hold this ship together at a level. So I'm really excited to feature them, and especially on something like International Women's Day. So again, tune in on 3-3 to that, and hopefully I've got some more professional digs. It's really up to Scott, who's on this with us right now, to prepare those digs or get them to me. So again, without further ado, today's episode is, Scott, you want to say something?
I'm going to jump off, but I just wanted to jump in and say that Danny's going to be the star of the show. I'm going to be producing in the background, so Danny can, like he said, get everything going, and we'll have all of the nice comments jump up and down. So I'm still here. I'm just in the background like the Wizard of Oz. So, Danny, take it away, and it's all you, man.
All right. See you, Scott. But without further ado, I want to introduce one of my oldest and best friends in life, someone who I do not get to see with the frequency that I used to, James Napper Tandy. He's going to be telling us a story today about a really scary experience that he and his family survived, and I'm happy for it, obviously. But I just thought it was a really good a good thing to talk about this week, given what I do for a living and whom I work for. And really, this is something that in California, the residents there really, unfortunately, have to deal with and think about and plan around. And, again, I'm going to kind of lay this floor out, or give the floor rather to Napper here in just a second. But I wanted to again welcome him. But if you could, Nap, before you get started, lay a little background as well. Start out with you moving out west because you couldn't handle New York. You're too soft and skinny for the weather, so California seemed like it was a little bit better. a little bit better.
I'm
for
a
you,
tri-state. Should I jump in here, Danny? You can kind of guide me with some guardrails here.
No, I'll keep you. So, I'll keep the comic relief. You have the floor.
All right. Yes, Danny and I went to high school together, and I think he graduated. And then I bounced around tri-state and ended up back in Manhattan, which is where I was born. And after a year and a half of that, 2 years of working in advertising, my girlfriend, who then became my wife, moved out to Los Angeles. And I worked in advertising there for 15 years. And right when my son turned 2, and we realized just all of the sort of trials and tribulations of trying to move around such a congested city, we moved to Santa Barbara, which is about an hour and 40 minutes up the coast, and a very manageable, cute, killer town. And like many LA transplants, we ended up in Montecito, which is just like 10 minutes south of Santa Barbara proper. And it's very wooded and right up against the foothills of the Santa Ynez Mountains. And we looked around for a house for like a year, finally found a house after renovated it for a month. And the day we moved in, I woke up and looked out the window south at towards a town called Ventura, and it was an amazing sunrise, which was too amazing because I realized that there was a wildfire had started, which would become famously the Thomas Fire, which burned down more acreage of California than any fire in the history of the state. And so we moved in while California started burning with ashes falling and bandanas around our mouths. And within 2 days, we were evacuated. And we didn't come back for a month as the fire just tore across the state. Luckily, our home was not burned, but it got really close. It was within a mile. The pool cover had a huge burn hole in it.
Are you thinking at that point? Are you thinking at that point too? Like, wait a second, what did we do here? Or are you still kind of, all right? You know what? This is just part of California.
No, I was
living.
panicked. I was panicked from the word go. Friends of mine who were Santa Barbara, they'd lived their whole lives. They were very sort of nonchalant about it, going, "Oh, this happens. It's not gonna be a big deal." But like within a couple weeks, within like a week of it, one of my buddies started getting very nervous because it got really close and the winds weren't helping. And it was just incomprehensible to think that everything you own will be burned and this home you have that you just moved into.
No, at that point, are you boxing stuff up in preparation, or do you have like you're like
no,
I have
we
a safe in
literally
my basement?
we literally when we evacuated, we literally just left with like bags of clothing, like a duffel bag.
So your pictures, your albums, right? And for those who don't know Napper, and I think there's going to be quite a few people listening in that do know him, but Napper loves cars, has since I've known him. Bought one of his first from my father, which he promptly got into an altercation in college while it was still registered to my father. A pretty funny story there that we could probably get into at a later date, but Napper loves cars too. So mind you, there's also some pretty freaking cool cars inside of his garage right now. An International Scout. What year's your Porsche? You've got a classic Porsche.
No, the Scout, the International is a 78 Scout, and then I have a 75 Alfa Romeo GTV.
It's the Alpha.
And I love guitars and bicycles and motorcycles and so there was a tremendous amount of stuff, things that have been passed down to me by my uncle, a vintage 63 Guild Thunderbird amp and a shell from, World War II that my grandfather had shot down airplanes and
stuff that you could never
camera.
replace. Wow.
A lot of sentimental stuff. So fast forwarding, come January, we had escaped to my then wife's father's house down in Florida. We come back early January, like the 4th. And we then in the bathroom, but my son wants to brush his teeth. And we sleep in the house like 3 nights, I believe, when there is, and they had been predicting it for a while, this atmospheric river that was supposedly showing up, this big rainfall. And they had this all sort of predicted out. Oh, because the mountains above us burned, it turned the soil into this sort of slick, like hydrophobic surface that if it rained, all the water would just run off of it instead of absorbing into it, which is what it's supposed to be doing. And we were not in an evacuation zone. We were next to one. And we really just kind of dumbly, I did prepare for a storm. I worked really hard to like get stuff out of the garage and get the old Alpha in the garage, move the Scout and the cars like up against the house, out from under trees, which I thought might break branches and things. And, I went to bed. They said, "Oh, you get some sandbags." And I looked at the front of my house going, it would take the Army Corps of Engineers to come out here and build sandbags all day to ever protect the front of this house from water. I mean, it was ground level. So you're staring at a front lawn that's facing the mountain. I'm going, we just didn't really understand what was possible.
Well, there's actually a specific strategy to doing that. They do it during floods as well. It's virtually impossible for you and your wife to. I mean, you're talking about thousands of pounds of sand and.
Oh yeah. No, it would have taken an army of people. So, we go to bed at like 1:00 in the morning, and there's just boxes everywhere. It's just boxes and those plastic moving bins. I foolishly like stacked them up in front of the doors, like as if that was going to stop water. I didn't really know what was coming. And assumed we'd wake up in the morning and go, "Wow, that was a big rainstorm." Instead, I wake up at about 3:50 in the morning And my wife is up at the end of the bed looking out these big French doors, and the whole backyard is lighting up like red, like dawn, and then pitch black again, and then bright red dawn. You can see all of the foliage, the trees, and then totally pitch black again. And I wear glasses or contacts, and I didn't even put on my glasses. I'm just standing at the edge of the bed. It must have been 30 seconds of just being awake. And I think my wife woke up because the giant air filters we had running from the fire shut off because the power had shut off. And what we later learned was it had rained tremendously. It rained like a half an inch or something, like a quarter of an inch. I forget the number, in like 15 minutes. And like water running off a roof into your gutters, the water just collected all over these mountains and all over these little little canyons and into the streams, which we lived right next to, the San Ysidro Creek. And it just took everything with it. Boulders, water, and it had smashed into a gas line above us and blew up like a whole house. And lit up the whole
is
sky.
that the fire that you're seeing? That's the lights that are going on and off. It's just basically the fire from the gas
The
explosion.
fire,
Wow.
and it's so overcast. It's like a light box, right? So the red flames are bouncing off of the sort of white, thick, overcast sky and illuminating everything. And thank God, because during one of the moments where it like lights up, my wife screams, "Oh my God, there's the mudslide!" And I look across the lawn, and there's like a 3-foot wall of mud and trees and debris and rocks just coming at the house. And I, without thinking,
Like a tsunami, basically, a mud tsunami coming right
yeah,
at.
not as, a lot of people exaggerated like how tall it was. From my memory, it was, it's about 2.5 feet tall, 3 feet tall. And there's videos that people shot of it coming down the road and things. And I instinctually just ran the way you would instinctually pull your hand off like a hot pot or something. Because my son was upstairs in his bedroom, and I just took off sprinting just to get to him. And I thought Mary was right behind me, because I remember yelling as I rounded the corner to the staircase. It was like a dogleg hallway to get to the staircase, which is right next to the front door. And I remember screaming like, "Up, up, like come with me up." And in my memory, she was right behind me. And as I rounded the corner, the front door just exploded in. And I grabbed onto the banister as like mud and rocks come smashing through. Something like slices open my leg. I jump over the banister. My son, luckily, is out of bed at the top of the stairs. I pick him up and kind of move into the doorway of the bathroom, which is at the top of the stairs.
I mean, that's where
which
you're
is
supposed
like,
to go.
it was like bracing for like an earthquake. I'm going, well, this looks like a strong part of the house. Meanwhile,
it's because where the pipes are, where you're supposed to go.
Your house being torn away, right? It's just glass breaking, wood snapping. Something punches through the second story and knocks the door off the hinges of the closet I'm standing next to. Now there's like a 6-inch hole out into the world, which must have been a huge tree that just came coming down and smashed into the house. I start thinking to myself, maybe the whole house is going to go down. And I go over to the window of the bathroom and lift open the shades, and I look outside, and what was once a fully wooded, grass, landscaped property with a guest house, with like a 800 square foot guest house, everything's gone. It's just a brown river as far as you can see. There's nothing there. There's
flowing
no
river at
trees.
this points too, right? Like we're not talking about like still. We're talking about, like you're saying,
Oh yeah,
rumbling, like water.
the house is still. There's just the sound of breaking glass, things smashing. My son's like, "Daddy, we are not jumping out the window," which I thought was pretty intuitive of him. I looked out there going, "Well,
he knows you well too." Apparently.
He didn't think that was a good idea. Now we're also keep trying to locate my wife.
Mind you, everybody who's listening right now, Mary's pregnant with India, their second child, right now as we speak. So the horror that's going through your mind right now, I can't even imagine.
She was 4 months pregnant, but also, I'm looking out the window at our bedroom, going, well, the bedroom's there. Yes, like the French doors are like punched in, but I'm also looking down the stairs, going, okay, like there's a lot of mud, but logically, I just couldn't piece together. I'm going, she didn't get like sucked out of the house, but I can't hear her, which is confusing, but it's also very loud. If you ever stood next to like a roaring river, it was that sound for a long, long time.
When you say long time, we're talking like 20 minutes.
So probably, 20 minutes of that. And Ever and I kept going back to the staircase to call to her. And, the third time we walked back to the staircase, because we'd been kind of seeking refuge in his bathroom, which had clothes in the hamper for him. And it was very cold that night, which is uncommon for Santa Barbara. It was like 40 degrees, which is not really cold, but it was cold for Santa Barbara. And I'm in a pair of boxer shorts. I'm able to pull a bunch of clothes out of the hamper, get him warmed up. And we walked to the staircase again to call to her, and the bedroom door to his room and the bedroom door to his unborn sister's room swing open. And I realized that the entire second story, those two bedrooms and the living room have been just ripped off the whole house. They're gone.
And for everybody who's tuned in, that's the picture. That I wasn't some random picture that I shared with everybody to advertise this. It literally, it's like there's a toothpick sticking up. You know what I mean? There's nothing left of your house. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, it cut the house right in half. His bookshelves are just hanging in the breeze. And he identified with that. Daddy, where did my room go? I went, well, they got torn off. And it's good. Also, part of the story, which I think is interesting, is he was so panic stricken when I got him.
How old's Ever at this point?
He's 8, and he was like 3.5 at the time.
Wow.
But calming him down, I think really helped me, because you got to really sell it. He's asking while the house is ripping in half and windows are exploding and the sound of everything snapping in half. I was calmly saying to him, hey, bud, remember it was going to rain. Well, it did. And the water's coming down, and you just like sell it. And he like calmed down. And as a result, I really was confident, like if I could sell to him that we were safe, it logically made me feel like I was okay. The flip side is, unfortunately, Mary never left our bedroom and ran for the bathroom, which filled full of mud up to the counter. And she witnessed the bedroom get torn off of Evers. She thought we were both goners.
Gone.
I never did logically think she was gone, though I couldn't figure out where she was. But again, within like 20 to 30 minutes, I think it was actually around 40 minutes, we finally heard each other. And I asked her if she was okay or injured or hypothermic or freezing cold. And she said she was okay. So
where is she at this point? Obviously, she's in the bathroom, but
she's in the bathroom.
Is she waist deep? Where is she?
She was waist deep, but then had jumped up on the counter, and luckily the mud never got any higher than the counter. But she too was like looking out the window, thinking she might have to jump out the window, and was definitely thought she was going to die, and thought that Ever and I had perished. So it was quite a relief to all of us to hear one another and know that we were okay. And then, helicopters started showing up. It was just chaos, because we were in better shape than a lot of people. 23 people died, one of which no one ever found. 2 of my neighbors died within 100 yards of our house. And as I was going to jump over the railing with Ever and go get Mary, I realized that there's power lines slapping around, gas lines blowing gas into the air.
You need to get the hell out of there, but how do you get out of there without electrocuting?
Yeah, and I went, we've made it this far. To get electrocuted now would really be insult to injury. Like, let's just wait a minute. And then sort of neighbors started showing up, and I ended up just like jumping into the mud with Ever. Somebody helped Mary out of the window onto one of my surfboards, and we walked through the mud to like a fireman's truck, and they drove us out of there. And I had a pair of underpants on, and I was wearing the bottom of Mary's wetsuit that didn't fit me, but at least it was like something over my legs.
Fortunately, Napper can hula hoop with a Cheerio, so he could put on Mary's wetsuit.
Indeed. So Mary walked out. I mean, my point here is we left that property with nothing but a pair of underpants. And I say that because, we started this by talking about how, how much stuff I had, Mary had. And, it was one of those moments. It sounds cliche, but I didn't care at all. Like, we were very happy
to be alive,
to be all together. We got out of there. The National Guard drove us out in giant, huge trucks. Mary's cousin picked us up, and we were at his house. And that's when the whole insurance process started, where he looked at me. I'm like lying on the couch with Ever going, wow, that was quite an experience. And he was going, you should get on the phone right now with your insurance company. And I was like, well, he's like, no, like right now. And so that process started. And then I don't know, Danny, if you want to ask specific questions about how that all went and so forth.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, obviously this is an insurance podcast, but at the same time, I'm just in awe of that. And I've heard it before, everybody. I've read it. Napper actually has been kind enough to share this experience. And it really is a gut check, or I guess a better way to put it, it just puts everything in perspective, right? What is important. We're going to start talking here in a second about belongings and how you recover that and what that process is like. But in truth, it just doesn't matter. Ever on the couch with you, the fact that India is now with you, like those are the things that matter, right? And I think that kind of gets lost with a lot of my contemporaries. First and foremost, it's cheesy, but we're fiduciaries. We're confidants. Our job as insurance agents, and I think part of the reason why I was one of your first phone calls, and my father and I were really there to help you, is that that's who we've always been. As professionals, as humans, but and our job in this industry is to be that fiduciary, to be that person who's there in your worst moment, right? At the end of the day, you spend your life paying for insurance to make sure that when there is that claim, when your house is torn in half by a mudslide, and you think your wife's dead, and you think your husband's dead, and you're flown to a safe location by FEMA to in your underwear with your wife's wetsuit on, that someone's there for you. So it's not really questions. I want to know. I think everybody wants to know. Like, this is we call it large loss in the industry. So when this occurs, most insurance companies have what they call a large loss team. So what I want to know is, like, what was your experience like? And again, I don't want to downplay how crazy this all is from an emotional standpoint. I really don't want to anybody to lose fact of the human element, but at the same time, like, what was your experience like? Now, number one, Napper had Chubb. So when I found out he had Chubb, that was a breath of fresh air for me. Just one of the best companies in the industry. And I felt very good about that for him when I found out about it. But what was your experience like? When did they call you? You obviously had to make the first phone call, but tell me a little bit about that large loss experience. What was it like?
Well, the big education for me was when we were buying the house. Obviously, we live in a place that fire insurance is important, and we were having trouble getting insurance, right? So we're trying to get a homeowner's policy, and we obviously need that for the mortgage. And then one of us, I think I had asked, well, who is currently insuring the house? And we had enough of a relationship with the seller that Mary called him up, and he said, oh, Chubb, this and that. And we got in touch with Chubb, and they just we just took over the policy. Now, I just figured insurance policies were insurance policies. Oh, great, we have the homeowner's policy. It turned out that we had a really, really good insurance policy. And as a result, things like not having to shoot videos or make an itemized list of all your belongings, that never came up. And I mean, the initial process, I don't recall. I called up. They assigned to us a very nice woman who was our specific adjuster. Is that the right?
Yep, adjuster.
And
field adjuster.
And right out of the gate, money was provided to us. I mean, I think we were told, go get whatever you need, in terms of toiletries and clothing items, so forth and so on. So right away, there was a feeling of like, okay, great. Like we can go get things we need, a hairbrush and stuff for our kids.
Well, because where's your checkbook? Where's your Mac card? Where's your cash?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
where is
That's
it?
a
Where
great
is
question. So I guess we got new bank cards from the bank and American Express,
it? Right?
So
Yeah, that's gone.
yeah,
So,
no, everything was gone. Exactly. And so at that point though, things went smoothly, however, we did then sort of parallel path. And I remember working with an insurance lawyer who suddenly, starts going through the policy and got us really scared because he's going, well, this is really gray space. You technically have fire insurance, but you don't have, it was clearly stated, you do not have flood or mudslide or any insurance like that. Luckily, FEMA and what is it, like the National Insurance Bureau or Association, they announced
Department of Banking and Insurance, probably in California, in conjunction with FEMA, and it's also the federal government really kind of supersedes everything, which is why FEMA comes in. But yeah,
so they announced within a days of this that the fire and the mudslide or debris slide, as they officially call it, were one incident, and once that happened, that just secured the fact that the whatever was going on with the house, it was all part and cause of a fire, which our house, we had insurance for. And so that, however, the insurance lawyer I was talking to, he still just kept pointing out that there was a lot of gray language that could be interpreted one way or another, which was, I had no idea that such a thing existed. I just assumed it's cut and dry.
Unfortunately, that's my first lesson to my policyholders has always been insurance companies stink and prepare yourself for it, right? Because there is that gray area. Insurance companies generally, I believe in them. I'm second generation agent, but your lawyer at this point is giving you good advice because he's preparing you. He's making sure that you're going to appreciate what he's doing at this point, because there is that gray area. But continue.
So as a result of that, then we get in touch by a.
They came to you. You didn't get in touch with them, correct?
No, I think I reached out to. I believe it was a friend from the shore or the Jersey Shore who had gone through Sandy, and they had recommended this adjuster, which we get in touch with.
A public adjuster, not
right.
Yep.
And they showed up to our house to like the rental we were staying in a few weeks later, and I kind of was looking at it sideways the whole time. Not only the way they were all dressed, I was like, this is not how I would show up to there was like someone in like maybe a Juicy Couture jumpsuit. And I was kind of like, this team.
Rocco and Biff showed up to save the day, huh?
Yeah, I was like, this team, I don't really know about this. This doesn't seem super, I don't know, professional or sophisticated. But then they started breaking down like, well, here's the thing, like you guys are here's what the insurance companies will do. We all work for insurance companies and we know where all the bodies are buried and all the tricks. And we're going, okay. And the biggest thing they tried to scare us with is, well, you're going to have to account for all your belongings. Now, these guys had already looked at our policy. So at this point, what they're doing is they're lying to us because they've already read through the policy and have identified, well, no, their policy isn't going to require them to do that.
It's Chubb. It's the best part about Chubb.
They were using that. And I forget, what is it? What are they? They were saying, okay, cool. So we'll help you get all the money you deserve, but we take, what was it, like 10%?
It was 10%. I think your house was like 1.4 mil on the reconstruct, I think is what it was. Something like that. So
it was at this point, we sign up with them, but we have, a week to reconsider. And it was at that point I called Danny and his father. And, I got on the phone with Mr. Ventresca, and I remember I was driving to go on a trip, and his point was very simple. It was basically like, why would you call in this type of help before you have any indication that you need it? And you're technically gambling on something that hasn't even begun to transpire. And just from speaking to someone who had experience with it, and he spoke much more highly about the process than what these public adjusters were offering us, which was just straight up scare tactics.
Well, because my father's, again, just to put it in perspective, my dad's a 50-year active State Farm agent. At one point, the largest home and auto producer in the nation for State Farm. And, I grew up in this office, and my father, behind his credenza, or behind his desk rather, in his credenza, has fleece blankets, has State Farm fleece jackets, and then an 88 checkbook, basically, which in your circumstance, which you just spoke to, my father has basically a hotline. So when a large loss occurs with any of his clients in his career, basically the phone rings to his cell phone, to his home. And when that happens, they're telling him, hey, Tony, you've got a large loss. One of your customers' house is on fire. Basically, Napper Tandy's house was just hit by a mudslide. He's in his underwear in a FEMA center right now. My dad has always gotten out of bed, went to his office, grabbed a fleece blanket, a fleece jacket, as many as he needs, grabbed his checkbook, which allows him, it used to be 10K or 5K, whatever it might be, cuts a check for $10,000, and then stands there, throws a blanket around you, hands you your fleece jacket, hands you a check for $10,000, watches your house burn down with you, and then ultimately kind of gives you that good advice. So there's certain agents, everybody, that are going to do it differently. Obviously, they're going to do more, they're going to do less, but the reality is, at this point, my father's given Napper, great advice, right? Don't do anything yet. You don't know what Chubb's going to do. And when he found out it was Chubb, when I found out it was Chubb, I'm like, wait. More than likely, Chubb's going to pay you more than what you need.
Yeah, and I don't. And in the end, there were other people on our street that had Chubb that I have not gotten back in touch with them. But we right out of the gate, everything worked out the way it was supposed to. And we were given money, and we went through the whole process of getting bids on what the rebuild would be. And we never ran into any arm wrestling or issues, and we were made whole. We had great communication with our adjuster. It worked out great. I do know that there were other people on our block that it didn't go as smoothly. I don't know why that was. If we just, because my wife was pregnant or had family in the neighborhood, I don't know, but not everyone.
And were these other people with Chubb too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, as well too, it also could be down to, again, everybody listening, this is our job. This is why I preface this with, being a fiduciary. I would bet dollars to donuts that the coverage package that you had through Chubb, there's different scales, there's different levels available. You just had a more expansive package than these other people did, right? To save a $500, like, which you'll never do, I know, and I know that, to save $500, to save $800, difference between your house being rebuilt, no questions asked, and
right.
Man, I'm out 100K, 200K on my own because I saved $800 3 years ago. It's crazy.
Yes. And that's what I tell all my friends now. I go, make sure you go through your own policy with someone who really can dissect it, and make sure that you've got the best you can have, because it made a huge difference for us. It was, I felt very grateful to be alive, and I didn't need any of my stuff. And if I'd never gotten any of my stuff back, that would have been fine. However, when you do realize that every dollar I had, basically minus some 401k stuff, is tied up in that property. And if you were to get into an arm wrestling match about it, that would just be unbelievable. Like the concept of facing down that your greatest investment and the majority of your savings and so forth is gone, or going to be put on the chopping block. That made the difference between the experience being something that I can talk about, that's fine, and being, I don't know, a turning point where your life gets destroyed.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's just remarkable. And everything that you went through, because there's really no high point here, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but there's really, can we find good in the fact that you had good coverage? Yeah. But in truth, I mean, you didn't get that guitar back. You didn't get the amp back. You didn't get the car back.
Well, I mean, as a side note, by the grace of the gods, I don't know why, but the one room on the ground floor of the property,
the man cave survived.
Was the room off the garage, and it was the only dry room in the whole place. And most of that stuff was fine. My cars got picked up and shoved around. State Farm totaled both of them. I don't to this day know why, because they both ran and were fine. They had body damage. So that worked out really nicely too. I'm totally happy about that.
Yeah. Can I ask you
So-
a question that's a little off topic? Why do our rooms always end up like off the back of the garage or like above the garage? I mean, come on. Like, why are we like you are like women? Women
I
get the
was
pallet
grateful
in
to
the
have it.
house.
It was the first time I was going to have my own space, so I
Uh-huh.
squirreled away all my belongings back there.
Well, it worked out. Karma worked out in your favor there. Very funny. Very funny. Well, Nap. I can't believe I can't believe it's been what almost 5 years now,
Yeah.
but because it doesn't seem like it's been that long. I actually was still in my agency at the time, but I can't believe it. I'm glad you're alive, uh, and I'm glad to be able to hear this story from you as opposed to just talking about it on my own and what could have been. I think we're all blessed there. I don't really have anything else today, ladies and gents. I mean, I think the although a short episode, probably one of the more impactful conversations you'll hear ever. Probably here, kind of the losing everything you've got at a level, but having made the right decision to allow that you're made whole again. It's kind of what we do as fiduciaries, and I'm really happy that you were able to share the story with us, Nap. And again, before I go, do you want to say anything to everybody, or
No, thanks for listening, and I certainly appreciate you and your father greatly. You guys helped us feel. Not only did you protect us from basic criminals that were going to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars for us, but it created a lot of ease just hearing from trusted friends that understood the business, not to worry, because there was a big gray area for a while because the insurance lawyer couldn't really make heads or tails and you weren't getting straight answers. And
I suppose we should have gone into that a little bit too. My father and I basically talked Napper out of using a public
Yes.
adjuster, and
Yes.
in the course saved him almost $200,000, which would have been out of pocket for him and
Yep.
Mary to rebuild the home. So,
and we never had a single ill word or debate or argument with Chubb. So, that made a huge difference. And so,
Right.
yeah, we're incredibly grateful. Insurance has been very good to us, and I don't take that for granted. So,
Yeah, well, it's it's not always the case. So it's nice to hear the good stories. As many bad ones as there are. So again, I thank you, and everybody, thank you for tuning in. Again, if you're listening live, thank you. Otherwise, again, tune in 12 p.m. To celebrate International Women's Day. Napper, I miss you, man.
all right, bud.
I can't wait to see you.
All right, bye,
Be
everybody.
good.
Thanks,
Take
Andy.
care. There.
Later, bud.